Hello, everyone. I'm so excited that you're here for this workshop. And yeah, welcome. I'm going to do all the introduction, teach you all about this. But first of all, I just want to say that I'm so proud of you for being here because realizing that you need help and recognizing that this is not something that you can break on your own is freaking massive. Most people don't realize this. Most people stay stuck binging for some people binge the rest of their life. Like sometimes I have clients who sign up with me and they're like in their 60s. So well done. Well done, you. Anyways, let's get into the fun stuff. So you are here today because you probably feel like an imposter in the gym. You're that girl who brings her meal prep to work, who comes straight from the gym to work with her massive duffel bag. You showered in the gym and then you eat so well at work, and all your colleagues are like, oh my God, like you're so good, you're so disciplined. I wish it was like you. But you know that you're an imposter because deep down, you know that you're gonna go home and binge after this. That on the weekends, you probably eat more than everyone at work who you think are so unhealthy. You're that girl in the gym who is there every single day. She trains so hard, you smash your workouts. You probably even have a nutrition coach, and they love working with you because you're such a hard worker. But you're not seeing results. You don't feel like a gym girl, even though you train like one. And you act like one except for when you lose control of binge. You probably tried everything to stop binge eating. You might even have listened to a few of my podcasts or workshops and, free content before. You worked with a million nutrition coaches. You tried every meal plan. You've tried every diet. You might even have tried a psychologist or GP and it didn't work. So you feel like, what's the point? Nothing's ever going to work for me. You're sick of the binge restrict cycle and you're so sick of binging every weekend and then restricting all week only to do it again and start again on Monday. The constant start over saying this will be the last time, but it's not actually ever the last time, is it? And lastly, but not least, you want food freedom. You want to be able to go to dinner and feel good about your choice. Whether you have the salad or you have the pizza, you feel comfortable with that. You don't sit there and second guess yourself. You don't sit there feeling guilty. You don't sit there thinking, oh my God, I'm going to binge now when I get home. You can wear the crop top to the gym. You can wear a bikini. You can wear that sexy dress. You can do it. And you want to be able to get there without giving up your weight loss goal. And you absolutely can. But you know that if you keep doing this, if you keep going on this path, it's going to lead to that more and more weight gain. Because, yeah, sure, you lose the weight between your binge cycles, but when you are binging, the weight is just piling on. And even though you might lose 3 kilos when you're restricting, you're putting on 4 kilos when you're binging. So slowly but surely, the weight is starting to stack up. Every time you binge, every time you say you're not going to binge, but then you do it anyway, a little piece of you breaks. It gets a little bit hard to get back on track. You're a little bit more mean to yourself. It's a little bit hard to watch yourself in the mirror. You're a little bit less likely to want to post something of yourself online because deep down you feel like such a fraud. You know you're going to waste more money on meal plans, more money on nutrition coaches, more money on finding the perfect macro split that's going to help you stop binging. And what it's actually doing is it's actually draining your wallet and not actually getting you anywhere. And it's going to take over your life. It probably already has taken over your life in some extent. How many times have you canceled plans to stay home and binge? How many times have you said, oh no, I'm busy because you would rather stay home and binge than hang out with your friends or your partner or your family? How many times have you said, oh, I'm just going to leave, left the party early because you said you had an appointment and then you just want to go home and binge? Maybe you're the person who eats your partner's food and then goes to the shops and quickly replaces it before he gets home. Maybe you're the person who eats your friends or your roommates or your family's food in secret. And then when they ask, where is it? You're like, I don't know. Binge eating has become your best friend. And it's the longer you leave it, you know that worse it's going to get. Because when you started binging to where you are now, that's probably a very different person, isn't it? But don't be scared. I have the solution for you, and I'm going to help you today by first of all sharing my own personal story with binge eating. Because even though I am a binge eating coach now, I didn't start off as that. I was struggling with binging for 10 years myself. I'm going to do a different approach to binge eating recovery than you probably ever heard before. Because a lot of, nervous system regulation gets a big hype on Instagram right now, but no one really knows how to actually apply these tools. No one really knows what nervous system regulation is. And I'm going to teach you why what you're doing before didn't work and why what I'm teaching is going to work for you. We're going to talk about what the hell is the nervous system, because it's a very fancy, cool word, but no one really knows what it is. What is it actually doing? How your nervous system is making you binge and why you're staying stuck. And most importantly, what actually works. How to stop binging and actually get results from your hard work in the gym. And I'm going to give you some freebies. So stay till the end, watch it back, make sure you take your notes. Even if you need to pause the video now, get some notes out, write it down. This is going to be information that you are going to want to know about. So who am I then? Well, my name is Ellen, for those of you who don't know me. I am the founder of the Empowered Woman program. This is a program that coaches women to stop binge eating. Some of my clients stop binge eating after the first call. Some people take 12 weeks. But what I will say is I will never, ever, ever give up on a client. I will be there with you till the end. I will make sure that you stop binge eating. I will not let you fail. I would never let anyone fail. I am accredited in cognitive behavioral therapy, neurolinguistic programming, acceptance and commitment therapy, and a nervous system specialist. I've helped women stop binge eating and find food freedom since 2018. So I've been in the game for a long time before it was cool to be a coach. I also have a podcast called the Unfiltered Empowered Woman podcast, where I talk about binge eating, nervous system regulation, meditation, manifestation, interview cool guests. Like it's a very all-rounded podcast about everything empowerment. I also work as an educator for Women's Fitness Academy, Women's Fitness Education, and Leadology, where I specialize in helping women overcome their self-sabotaging mindsets. And do a lot of guest speaking events for other coaches and international companies. So let's talk a little bit about my story. And the reason I want to start with sharing this is because you might be sitting there thinking, well, how is this girl going to relate to me? Like, what does she know? What has she been through? She has not had it as well as I have. Let me tell you, I have. I kept binging for 10 plus years because I kept saying, it's not that bad. I can do it myself. I was the queen of being Miss Independent. I could do everything myself. I didn't want to rely on anyone. It was my way or the highway. I was the hardest worker in the room and I never needed help. Like, I don't need help. I can do it. Everything. Whether that was carrying a bag upstairs or if it was ending binge eating, I didn't need your help. I kept saying, I'm not bad enough to get help. I was never really overweight. Like if you look at this picture here, when I was binge eating and trying to not binge, I wasn't fat. And so I felt like I'm not bad enough to get help. Versus now, where I've stopped binge eating, I've regulated my nervous system and learned to eat with intention. I was stuck in this, I'll start again on Monday mindset. I'd wake up every single Sunday or Monday, with a food hangover. Like my face puffy, my body feeling like shit, everything hurting because I'd eaten so much food. Like I literally felt like hungover even though I didn't drink. And I kept saying, I'll start again when I've lost this weight. Once I've lost these 5 kilos, then I will start working with a specialist. I'll start working on my mindset when I've gotten to X, Y, Z. Or the most common one that I hear most of the time, I can't afford it right now, / it's not the right time. Well, when is it ever going to be the right time? Honestly, it's not going to be like a big red sign in your calendar saying right time. That's not going to happen. I just kept making excuses and I'm afraid that so are you. But the good thing is that at least you're doing better than I was and you're actually here, because I would never have signed up to something like this when I was deep in the trenches back then. But damn, I wish I would. So my binge eating journey started off with me developing anorexia, which is something I see a lot in the women that I work with. So a lot of women come from either something as severe as an eating disorder, or it could just be a long time of restrictive dieting and eating way less than you're burning. So what happened was that I went from one extreme to the next of controlling my food all the time to completely losing control. And I didn't know how to eat in a normal way. I couldn't remember what it was like to eat when I didn't track, when I didn't, try and lose weight, when I didn't count every single calorie. I didn't know what normal eating looked like. And because I never got help and just kept doing it myself, just kept going and just got worse and worse and worse. So what started off as me eating a bit extra on Friday and Saturday, like after I finished school or work or whatever I was doing, quickly escalated into full-blown binge eating. So when I moved to Australia, I'm from Sweden, but when I moved to Australia, I got with a guy and I remember hiding this behavior from him so much and still smashing it in the gym. I was still going to gym 6 days a week, sometimes twice a day to make up for what I'd eaten. And I remember he used to say to me, like literally confirming what I was already thinking, you don't look like a gym girl. Like, how can you train so much, but you don't look like you have muscle? You're not skinny, you're not ripped. And even though that was shit, and he definitely shouldn't have said that to me, it was true. It was true, and it was awful to hear because I knew it was true, and I knew why. He didn't know why. He didn't know I was binging as soon as he wasn't home. He didn't know that when I said I'm just going to the beach, I actually went to a drive to McDonald's, got a huge McFlurry, family meal, more chocolate, ate it in the car, and then threw all of the rubbish in someone else's bin because I didn't want him to know. I didn't want anyone to know, you know? And I would literally get mad at him if he would come home and I'd planned to binge, and because he would interrupt my binge. And I'd be like, fuck, because I couldn't tell anyone. This was my dirty little secret. And this just got worse and worse and worse and worse. The more I tried to control it, the worse it got. I was working with coaches who were like, just calorie bank and calorie cycle. And if you want to eat more on the weekends, maybe you need to have more calories to eat. And I was doing that, just get made it worse. I worked with a coach who said, well, just try harder, just have more willpower. Didn't work. Nothing worked because it wasn't about the food. It wasn't about having more willpower. It wasn't about restricting better during the week and having more freedom on the weekends. It was about the inner work. And I didn't realize how bad I actually was until I was working at a cafe at one point and I was closing the cafe. And I knew that when I was closing the cafe, I would have to be responsible for throwing all the leftover cakes and pastries and stuff out in the bin and, cleaning it all out. And what used to happen was that that used to be like a free for all for me. I just used to binge because no one was there. It was me. And I was tired after a long day and I felt like I deserved it. And I almost looked forward to it. So what I started doing was throwing it in the bin and then putting coffee grind over it. Because one time when I didn't do that, I literally took that freaking croissant out of the bin, put it in my mouth, look up, and there's a customer. And I've never, like, my face goes red just thinking about it because I was so embarrassed. But that's when I realized, like, shit, this is not normal. Like, it's not normal to eat food from the bin. So I decided to start working on myself. I decided to do the inner work. And I actually got introduced to this by a random workshop that I just came to with my friend because she wanted to go. And I just burst out in tears because I was like, yes, this is what it's about. And then I started doing more research about it. And I started really focusing on like, what is this? And learning everything I could about binge eating. And quickly escalated to becoming one of the leading binge eating specialists in Australia. And honestly, I'm so grateful for my journey, even though it sucked. I know now how much is helping other people. And for that, I'm so grateful. So hopefully I can help you too. Now, if you're looking at this thinking, oh, well, you might just be a one-off person. Let me introduce you to myself, my friend, my client, Imje. She is from South Africa, so I work with clients from all over the world, and she thought she would never be able to break this. She said, I don't think this will work, but I'll give it a go. Now, after our first intro call, she's like, you know what, why would this work? I've done everything else, why would this be different? But it did work. She had tried everything and nothing ever worked for her. But in her first call, we identified her core triggers and beliefs, and she was able to stop binging within 4 weeks of us working together. This is someone who felt like she couldn't afford it, she couldn't do it, but she did. She said, it genuinely changed my life for the better. Worth every dollar, even if it seems like a big commitment or amount of money, it was worth it all. What's your life worth? This is my client, Cassie. Cassie is a coach just like me. And she felt like such an imposter because she was a coach, or she is a coach. And she's like, why am I telling my clients to eat this way when I can't? Like, I can't stick to it. Like, what's wrong with me? And she felt terrible about herself. And she did a bodybuilding show. And after the show, as it usually does, it escalated. I work with a lot of clients who compete in bodybuilding. And after the show, if they don't have that support, it's freaking hard. And it was for her as well. She tried it for 6 months before she realized she wasn't getting any better. And she stopped binging within 6 weeks of working with me. Since then, she has now dropped the binge weight and is now maintaining her new lower body weight. This message that she sent me here, that was sent 6 months after working with me. Like, she has maintained these results. This is not a quick fix. This is something you're gonna be able to maintain for life. These results aren't random. They are the kind of results that you are going to get when you work with the right person and work with the body, the mind. Oh, sorry. Here's me, can't spelling. Spelling, not my great thing. Workshopping, teaching, coaching, my thing. When you work with the body and the mind, that's when you get results like this. Not just talk therapy, not just breath work, but combine somatic work with talk therapy, and you have a winner grand slam. So, some signs that you might be feeling dysregulated, because honestly, most people don't know that they are constantly just living in a chronically dysregulated nervous system. Because that binge urge starts way before you're elbow deep in ice cream. And it starts with things that you probably look at as, this is normal, this is just how I am. For example, a big thing is brushing your teeth while checking your phone, while making the bed, while putting the laundry out. When you feel like you can't just be still. So when you keep saying things like, I don't want to binge, but every weekend you lose control and you go way over your calories, that's a dysregulated nervous system. When you keep saying things that you don't want to do things, but you do them anyway, that's self-sabotage. Self-sabotage comes from a dysregulation in your nervous system. It doesn't come from not having enough willpower, not being disciplined enough. It comes from you having a dysregulation and your nervous system believing that this action that you want to break is what you need to do to stay safe, to survive. Constant overthinking. What you did, what you said, how that person reacted, if you did enough. Constantly, your mind constantly going, maybe you can't sleep, maybe you can't switch off, maybe you struggle to be present in conversations. Dysregulation. No matter what you do, you never feel enough. And you always compare yourself to others. No matter if you won first place in the marathon, doesn't matter. I didn't get that time. I'm not good enough. Or if you get 20 likes on Instagram, doesn't matter. It's only 20 likes. I wouldn't to get, like, that person gets 200. Or if you're with a coach, they always share all of these people on their story. They must think that they're so much better than me. Maybe you lost 1 kilo this week. I lost 1 kilo, but I don't know, I could have lost 2. And like the week before that, I didn't lose any. That's dysregulation. You can't relax. If you watch TV and you need your phone, you need food, and you need a coloring in book just to stay in the sofa and watch TV and be able to focus on the show, that's dysregulation. This is not normal. Unfortunately, it has become normal for our society, but doesn't mean that it should be normal. So if you said yes more than twice to those things, make sure you stay to the end and download and complete my Nervous System Reset ebook and send it to me on Instagram, and I'll send you the exact details of what you need to do next. So this is why your previous nervous system regulation tools, and I put that in brackets because people think it's nervous system regulation, and it can be to some extent, but it's not really. So how many people have been told to journal when you want to binge? I definitely was told that. And journaling can be great, but in the moment of a binge, that's the last thing you want to do. That definitely was the last thing I went through when I was binging. You were told to just take a deep breath. And breathing is amazing. Don't get me wrong here. Breathing is something that directly impacts our nervous system and can calm us down or wind us up, but only if used in the correct way. Just taking one deep breath is not going to help you dismiss that urge to binge. This is basically like saying, if you're feeling anxious or you're feeling stressed, Just don't feel stressed. Just don't feel anxious. When has that ever worked? You were told to meditate and silence your brain. Meditation is another thing, really good tool, but not when you are getting a binge urge. Seated meditation can actually make your binge urge stronger and create more stress in the body. Why this is because it's basically like, imagine that you're in the forest and there's a tiger coming. If the tiger is like 30 miles away and you can just hear it roar, yeah, sure, then meditation and breathing might help. But if the tiger's right in front of you and you say, okay, sit down and meditate, well, your brain and your body is gonna go like alarm, like, hey, we'll send out those signals to go, you need to freaking get moving, like go do something. And the stress response will double because you feel so stressed and pressured in that moment. So this is why meditating when you get an urge probably is not going to help you. So this is why you can't talk your way out of a binge. And you can journal, you can try to have more willpower, you can start again on Monday, you can tighten up your macros, sign up with a new coach. Nothing will ever work until you learn to regulate your nervous system. This is the key thing. So, if you've watched any of my workshops before, you might be familiar with the binge eating cycle. But this is the binge eating cycle from a nervous system point of view. So the first thing that happens, why we binge, we get a trigger, right? Something happens that triggered us to binge. We don't just sit on the sofa and nothing happens and then boom. There's always something that triggers it, even if that means that you're sitting on the sofa just feeling bored. That's still trigger, you know? So a very common trigger is you didn't lose weight, maybe you compared yourself to someone on Instagram, maybe you didn't get the results that you wanted, something like that, that triggered that belief that you're not good enough. This is the most common core belief that most people have. I've struggled with this myself. I still struggle with this for a lot of time, but this is the most common core belief that I see with clients, especially when it comes to binge eating recovery. The body then goes, danger, danger, because that doesn't feel good. Most of us are not taught how to sit with those feelings of, I'm not feeling good enough right now. I'm feeling a bit sad. I'm feeling a bit lonely. I'm feeling, guilty, or I should have done better, or whatever it is coming up. So instead of sitting with that, we go, okay, how can we get rid of this? How can we make ourselves feel better in the moment? That's when we take action and autopilot kicks in. Boom. What happens in the brain is that your prefrontal cortex, your logical brain, gets flooded with stress hormones, autopilot takes over, and you do what feels normal, what you've always done, or what you've done for a really long period of time. And you binge, because that temporarily makes you feel better. This is then, as soon as you finish eating, I'm sure you can all relate, why can I never do anything right? What's wrong with me? Why can't I be like everyone else? Why am I always the one who fails? And this creates a lot of anxiety. I'll compensate for this by doing X, Y, Z. Maybe I'll restrict my food, sign up to another plan, track my macros harder, have more willpower. This will be the last weekend. But all this is doing is just creating more stress. So you stay stuck in this dysregulation. And it's going to keep happening again and again and again. So let's then look at what the nervous system actually looks like, because you probably have no clue. Because most people have no clue. They just like, oh yeah, nervous system, fight or flight. So much more goes into it than fight or flight. The nervous system controls everything. And it's always on alert of, are you safe or are you not safe? When you're walking down the street, your nervous system is constantly at work scanning, is that person dangerous? Is that person good? Because if someone's coming with you with a knife, you need to be able to get the fuck out of there. This is what your nervous system is doing. It's not a bad thing. It's just literally you need it to survive. Every single living creature has a nervous system. So the top of the nervous system is called the parasympathetic state. This is our ventral vagal state, the break, the slow. This is the playful state. This is the stillness. You can play, you can have fun, you can be present in conversations, you can take things in, you can see what's right and wrong, you can make conscious decisions, you can look beyond what you want right now to what you want in the future, and you can actually do it. You can actually get shit done. Then we have the sympathetic state. The sympathetic state is the fight or flight state, which most people are probably quite aware of. This is the doing state of the nervous system, which means there's a lot of mobilization here. There's a lot of energy in this state. This is when, the fight state, for example, fighting someone off or screaming or hitting or getting really pissed, like road rage kind of vibes. And then we have our flight state, which might be like running away, avoiding, eating, getting rid of the problem. Below here, we have, well, right at the bottom, we have a state called fawn. Fawn is the oldest part of our nervous system that was developed because our bodies don't want us to feel pain. Yes, a little bit of pain, but if the body feels like there's too much pain right now for you to handle, it will put you into a fawn state because it feels like this is the best thing we can do for you right now, because we cannot get away from this experience. This is, for example, where, a lion would catch a moose or a bunny or whatever whatever animals they eat in the jungle. And the bunny would then go into a fawn state so it didn't feel all of the pain of being eaten. This is something that a lot of, trauma survivors go through because it's just too painful to be there. So they disassociate, shut down, and numb themselves. This is where a lot of people feel depression, feeling stuck, feeling like they can't move. In between fawn and fight or flight, we have a state called freeze, which does not get talked about enough. This is equal parts sympathetic and dorsal. So dorsal is the regulated state. Or sorry, dorsal is the fawn state. Dorsal is equal parts go, 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 and equal parts stop. You need to be still. And this is why you have that, I have to, but I can't. And I have to, but I can't. And I have so much to do, but I don't know where to get going. This is where we procrastinate. This is where a lot of people turn to binge. This is where a lot of people stay stuck because their bodies are like, we have to do so many things. But it's also, I don't know where to start. I just want to give up. And you get stuck there. So when we look at stressors then that triggers these responses, they're very different now and then. But obviously, your body, your nervous system hasn't changed at all in the last however many years. It's basically exactly the same as it was when we were living in caves versus now that we're living in beautiful high-rises apartments. Like, it doesn't know the difference. It just knows stress. It doesn't care if you're stressed from someone looking better than you on Instagram, or you not having enough money, or the scales going up, or you not feeling good enough, or feeling the pressure from always having the most expensive handbags, or the pressure of looking a certain way and that you're starting to look old. It doesn't know the difference between that stress versus the stress of, do I have enough food here to feed my family? Is the group that I'm in, are they safe? Is there someone from another cave group coming to attack us? Is there a tiger down the road just waiting for us to step out of the cave and come and eat us? It doesn't know the difference. So of course, it's going to react in the same way as it did back then. This is why we need to befriend our nervous system, because your state decides your story. How your body is feeling will always impact the stories that you're telling yourself in your mind. So when we look at a fight state, for example, fight state, you feel angry, you feel reactive, and you want to confront the threat head on. Someone who's in a flight state might feel anxious. You want to feel that you want to escape, you want to avoid a situation. Someone who's in a freeze state want to shut down. They feel stuck, they can't make a decision. In a fawn state, it's people please, disassociate, and you try to keep the peace to stay safe. So every person has a state where they feel the most safe. The state where their nervous system tends to put them in as soon as they get triggered or there is some kind of emergency. So have a think about which state do you tend to go into. I know I'm definitely a fight person. How does this then apply to binge eating? You might be thinking. So in a fight state, let's say that you see a girl on Instagram and she looks so much better than you, or you think so at least, and instantly you feel angry or not good enough. And to calm yourself down from that frustration, because straight away you go into, like, what is she doing that's better than me? Why can't I just do more? I need to like squat more, I need to train harder, I need to eat better, I need to be more strict, and I need like she's like, why does she think she's better than me? Oh, I can't believe she's posting the photos with her ass hanging out. And instead of dealing with that frustration and understanding where it's coming from, why it's so triggering for you, you eat because food becomes a way to release that pressure and silence your mind for a bit. If you're in a flight state, let's say you overeat at dinner with your friends, you feel anxious and to escape the situation, you go, fuck it, and as soon as you get home, you binge because you don't even want to think about it, you don't want to feel the guilt, you don't want to sit with that. If you're in a free state, you feel stuck, numb, or disconnected after a long day trying to do all your tasks. You're busy at work, maybe you have kids, there's so much to do all the time. And then when you get home, you eat because it gives you a quick comfort of when you can't process everything that you're feeling. Phone, someone pressures you to just have it. Maybe you're at a family dinner or a dinner with your friends, and they're like, why don't you have some pizza? Why don't you have dessert? Or here, we made this. Are you not going to eat it? And because you don't want to disappoint them, you just eat anyway. You just want to keep the peace. Even though your body's full and you don't actually want to eat it, it feels easier to eat and put that pressure yourself to eat more than actually saying how you really feel, because that feels too scary. So how do we then regulate from this? How do we fix this problem? So I want you to look at regulation or your nervous system like a ladder. And in order to climb that ladder from whatever state you're in, you need to move through the different state. This is what somatic work really is. So regulating from a fawn state, very different from regulating from a fight or flight state. If we remember, fawn is very like still, like can't move, don't want to feel anything, numb, like maybe you haven't felt happiness or sadness in a long time. Imagine if I just then tell you, oh, just go for a run, get rid of it. Like you can barely go and have a shower. How are you going to go for a run? Of course, it's going to be different. And the same thing goes for if you're in fight or flight and you're super anxious and super stressed about something and you can't stop thinking about it. And I tell you, just sit down and meditate. That's gonna make it worse. It's gonna be like in the forest again with the tiger, like, there's worse things to do here. So we need to understand what stage of the nervous system are we in and how can we move through the ladder to get back into that regulated place. So this is what you actually need. A step-by-step guide to understand how to dismiss that urge to binge. When you get triggered and you start having that thought of, I'm just going to eat whatever, there's chocolate in the fridge, screw it, I'm just going to have it. And you go into autopilot, you get completely dysregulated, you have no access to your logical mind. How do you dismiss that? How do you regulate before you get to that point? How do you not act when you are on autopilot? How can you snap out of it? And then also how to let go of the guilt post-binge. Because guilt is another thing that's stressing you out. Guilt is another thing that's making you feel like shit. Because your nervous system doesn't understand the difference between past, present, and future. It just understands what you're telling it is happening. So like when you're watching a scary movie, for example, your heart's probably beating, you're probably feeling a bit anxious, you're probably tensed. That's not because that scary ghost or demon is right in front of you. You know logically that it's not there, but your nervous system believes that it is. So this is why you're having this reaction. Same thing goes if you are thinking about the last time you binged and you're feeling like shame and failure and disappointment in yourself. Of course you're going to feel like that. And of course you're then going to act in the same way. Your thoughts are then just creating the same behavior again and again and again. You need the nervous system regulation work. You need to understand where you get stuck. What stage of the nervous system are you in? How do you self-soothe and regulate from that place so that you can move back and climb the ladder back to regulation and respond with intention rather than reacting like this and just reacting out of habit? You need to reset and transform. We need to reset your dopamine levels because when you're constantly on that guilt, shame, feeling like a failure, well, of course, you're going to want more dopamine. Of course, you're going to want to feel better in the moment. Of course, you're going to want a quick fix. Of course, you're going to want to, eat that chocolate cake or whatever it is because it feels good. And of course, you're going to want to scroll on your Instagram and, talk to different people and go on dating apps and do all the things because you don't know how to feel calm. You're constantly like this. Of course, it's going to be hard. You need to stop that constant roller coaster of either being on a super high, on a super low, or super high or super low. This is going to help you feel more regulated and calm, and you can actually start living your dream life. And what's going to happen if you don't do these things? You'll keep working hard in the gym, but you still binge on the weekends or at night. And you'll keep making yourself feel better by saying, I'll start fresh on Monday. But deep down, you know that you feel like the biggest imposter. And you don't want to post that selfie in the gym. Or you do, but you edit it or you hold in your stomach and you're like, I know I don't look like that in real life. Every time you're bored, lonely, comparing yourself to other women on Instagram, you'll start telling yourself that I'm not good enough story and you'll binge to distract yourself from feeling because you don't want to feel sick with that. You'll keep skipping meals and adding in extra cardio to make up for what you've eaten, but it will never be enough because you can't out-train a bad diet. It's much easier to eat 3,000 calories than it is to burn it off. But what happens if you do actually focus on these things and you do take what you've learned today and apply it to your real life? You'll actually start feeling like the gym girl that you say that you are. You'll actually start looking like her. And you start posting pictures of yourself, feeling proud of your physique, and actually be able to stick to that deficit. Whenever you feel emotional, you'll know how to self-soothe and regulate. You can do this in a healthy way, and that actually helps you release what you're feeling so that you can regulate and come back to your body. You can make decisions from that conscious state based on what you actually want and your long-term goals, not just what you want right now. You no longer feel stressed around food, holidays, or going out for dinner because you know that you're not going to overeat or binge. You see that your body is changing every week, and eating healthy just feels so easy for you. So, if you're sitting here thinking, this sounds exactly like me, and you're tired of trying to fix it alone and feeling disappointed every time you fail, here's how we're going to actually fix it. Because these girls thought they'd never be able to stop binging either. They had tried everything. But then they tried the Empowered Woman. And they were able to stop binging within the 12 weeks that we were working together. Some of the women that I work with stay with me for a long time because they love the transformational internal journey. But the binging is honestly not something that is a big problem for us. That fixes quite easy. The Empowered Woman program is for women who are ready to stop binge eating and finally start seeing results from all the hard work. This program is going to take you from feeling lost and out of control around food, and probably most of your life, to feeling empowered, confident, and actually get the results that you deserve from all the hard work that you've been putting in. My unique 12-week method has been trialed by thousands of women and is a blend of one-on-one support with me, not someone else, group coaching, and educational modules. This is what the Empowered Woman method is. Week 1 to 4, we start with the binge breaker blueprint. And these first 4 weeks is all about getting those quick wins and building momentum. Because I want you to start breaking your binging and seeing difference in your journey. You'll have weekly calls in the group, you'll have the check-ins with me, and you'll have all the accountability and support that you need to start breaking your binge eating. Week 4 to 8 is about doing the deeper work. The binging is not going to be a problem anymore. So this is when we need to really focus on, why did this start? Where did this come from? Where is this all or nothing mindset coming from? Why do you feel like you're not good enough? Where is your anxiety coming from? How can we regulate this and manage this so that you don't ever go back to binge eating or any other self-sabotaging behavior ever again? And then the last 4 weeks is about resetting and regulating. This is where we're really going to get into the nitty-gritty of resetting your dopamine levels to allow you to have balance in life. I want your eating to start feeling easy and that you're no longer feeling stuck with constant food noise, constant cravings, constant thoughts about binge eating. You now have freedom. You have so much space in your life to do things that you actually enjoy, and that it's actually going to help you build your dream life. And your body will naturally start dropping that binge weight, and you'll start to look and feel like the gym girl that you actually are. And you can be proud of that. You will not fail this. You won't. 87% of the clients that work with me stops binge eating at week 6. 10% stop at week 8. And the remaining 3, if you've done all the work that I told you to do, the remaining 3 will stop at week 10 to 12. You will. And like I said at the start, I would never let anyone fail. There's not a chance. Like, I'm so invested in this. And if you can't tell by my passion, I live for this. Like, this is what I do. And I want to help you too. I know it's scary, but all of these women follow the steps of the program and they all stopped binging before the 12-week mark. And as you can see, they're all so different. So you're not broken. You've just tried the wrong strategy. Like, we have everyone from Rihanna, who's a student, and she tried everything, even eating disorder counselors to stop her binging. And she was even purging as well. And she didn't have the money to pay, so her parents paid for this. And then she was able to stop binging. Amy was a fitness coach who felt like she was an imposter because she was binging and she didn't have control of her food. But after just 2 sessions with me, the binging was gone. We also have Bailey, who had gone to therapy for years without progress. She had done everything she thought that she could do for binge eating, but after joining the Empowered Woman, she stopped binge eating and dropped the weight and has been able to maintain it and continue her career in modeling. Look, I know you're going to say, but it's so expensive, I can't afford it. Yes, but how much are you actually spending every week on binge foods? Go and look at your Uber Eats account. Go and look at how much you spent on McDonald's or KFC or pizza or donuts or chocolates or even just buying snacks at the service station. Because I can guarantee you that it's going to be more than this program costs. With an in-person therapy session, you're looking at $300 a session. No contact in between, no homework, no workbooks, no nervous system tools. And let's not forget that you also have to drive there, take time out of your day to go to the appointment, sit there and wait, drive home. That's 2 hours wasted. But with the Empowered Woman, you're looking at all of this for just $79 a week. Yes, you heard that right. And that's Aussie dollars for everyone who doesn't know. This is a special workshop offer. So if you're watching this, you're lucky girl. This is for the busy woman who doesn't have the time or need for smart one-on-one support. Now, I say this because you can always upgrade to more one-on-one support if you want to and if you need to. But this is going to give you so much support. You're going to have the free onboarding call with me, which normally costs $300. So I'm giving this for free. You're going to have weekly group call with ongoing coaching and community support. This is where you can ask your questions. You can submit questions beforehand if you can't make it, but they are recorded. And you can when you join the calls, you're going to see that you're not alone. So many other women struggle with this. And hearing other people get coached and hearing them ask questions will make you feel like, I'm not alone. Like, other people are going through this as well. And that person just asked something that I had no idea, that I thought I was alone thinking like that. And hearing another person get coached through it actually allows you to also be coached through it. You have a 24/7 access group chat, which is private and no one else except the women on the Empowered Woman can be in that group chat. We have a private app community where you will have your check-ins with me. You'll have access there to all the educational modules, to all the workbooks, everything from binge eating recovery to nervous system regulation, manifestation, empowered eating, and so much more. We also do breathwork sessions, we do workshops, we do so many things. You get so much access on this program. Like, it's actually insane. Like, my business coach was like, you need to raise your price. And I'm like, no, I want this to be affordable for people. Imagine yourself in 12 weeks. feeling the happiest you've ever felt, confident in yourself and your body, and totally unshakable around food. You know, you can go out for dinner. You can have chocolate you can have chocolate at home. You can have Nutella at home. You can have chips. You can have ice cream. You don't eat it all. You just let it sit there because it doesn't bother you anymore. It doesn't matter. It's just normal for you. You feel confident in your body. You feel like I did this. Like what it was so easy for me. Why did I not do this years ago? Why did I waste all those years feeling like shit when I could be feeling this good? And you can get there in just 40 to 60 days for just $79 a week. And let's remember here that that's probably less than your weekend binge. Plus, I have a bonus for you. And this is for the woman who feels like, you know what, maybe I don't really want to commit to coaching right now, but I'd love some help on my nervous system. So fill out the nervous system reset workbook and I'll send it back to you. Oh, sorry, you send it to me and I will send it back to you with a personalized voice note. This, I'm going to send you also my Binge to Balance ebook. So you get 2 workbooks plus the personalized voice note at the price of one, which is free. So this is just a win-win situation. So you're going to get some help from me, you're going to get the ebooks, and you're going to get the Binge to Balance ebook. But in saying that, if you watched this far and if you're here today, I recommend join us. You're not going to regret it. You're going to stop binge eating and you're going to get your life back. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for staying to the end. Thank you so much for watching. And I hope that you get to have the joy that me and my friend have in this picture, because honestly, that was just the best day of just celebrating in our bikinis and having the best time and just feeling confident and not worrying about a thing. And I want that for you as well. And I know that I can help you get there. So with that, I'm going to say bye-bye and hope to hear from you soon. If you're wanting to sign up, you have all the links below for the weekly, the monthly, or the upfront payment plans. Whatever suits you, whatever suits your budget. The important thing is that you take charge and you actually do the thing that you say you're going to do. Let this be the year that you stop binge eating for good. All right? Sayonara. I'll see you soon in the Empowered Woman program.